Hello everybody and welcome to the channel. My name is Plami, and in this episode of Plami's Thoughts On, I'm gonna be sharing my thoughts on the 8th episode of the first season of The Walking Dead World Beyond. The episode is called The Sky is a Graveyard, although I don't really understand why, and I'm not really a huge fan of the names of the episodes of this show. I feel like a lot of them are just trying too hard to be artsy and meaningful, and they end up not meaning anything because it's so kind of like a deep meaning that only like the writer could think of it. I had that problem with my writing, so it's a little bit annoying to see it in other people's writing as well, but at the very least it shows me that I'm not the worst writer or anything. And yeah, I actually really enjoyed this episode. As I said in my Fear the Walking Dead review, I really enjoyed this episode and the next two episodes, which were the season finale episodes, episode 9 and 10. But those two episodes are gonna be talked about in a different video. In this one, I'm going to relatively quickly do an overview of this episode and share thoughts that I have about it. But before we get into that, I just want to quickly mention that if you enjoy this video and all my videos in general, I would really appreciate you if you go over to Patreon and pledge your support at any tier. Like any amount of money would help me out and support this channel so I can continue doing these videos. Even though I will keep doing this, even if I don't make money doing it, it would definitely be much more helpful if I can actually support myself by doing it, and I can focus on doing it all the time, and that would be my only focus, you know. And additionally, I also want to mention that I've actually released a new chapter of my own story called Dead Inside. If you didn't know, in addition to doing all these YouTube videos, I'm also a writer. I have a Wattpad page where I we'll be posting much more stories in the future, but so far I've only started one. It's a zombie story, it's called Dead Inside, and it's currently on its 6th chapter. That's the chapter that I need to write next. So I recently released the 5th chapter. I really hope you enjoyed. It's not my favorite, and the story is still in like the early stages where it's not really that fun and entertaining even to write. Like, I'm currently trying to go through the boring stuff in the beginning of the apocalypse, so definitely expect much more interesting stuff in the future. But I'll definitely appreciate you at the very least if you checked it out, even if you didn't end up liking it. At the very least, just check it out. I don't think that's gonna harm you. Like, check the first chapter and then check the most recent one, and if you don't like it, that's fine. And yeah, I think that's it, so let's get into the review of this episode. And basically what this episode is about is Silas's backstory. I mean, that's the main thing about the episode. I know there are a bunch of other things, like at the end of the episode, it's Hope reveals to Elton that she killed his mom and his unborn sister. But the episode is basically about Silas, and from the beginning of the season we knew that Silas killed somebody, and that it was somebody who shouldn't have been killed, I guess you could say. And I also expected that it was probably going to be justified by the end of the season, because they weren't going to make one of the main 4 characters be the bad person or anything, so it was always gonna end up being a misdirect. But I actually kind of like what they did, because ultimately the person that Silas killed didn't necessarily deserve to die, but it also didn't necessarily deserve to not die, you know? And I'm gonna get into what I mean more as we get into my review more, but yeah. So basically in the backstory for Silas, we are revealed that his father was a very abusive asshole. But I gotta say, I really like how the episode actually showed a lot of the good moments with his father and his family in general. Yes, there was some bad stuff, but there were also some good moments with him. And honestly, that kind of thing really resonated with me, because I've had a lot of troubles with my father. Like, he's not the biggest asshole, like he's not abusive like physically or anything, but he's definitely very mentally abusive and exhausting to me. And he just doesn't understand how harming and just draining the way he acts towards me is. And there have been times where he has been really harsh and strict for no reason whatsoever, just because he thinks he's the boss and he can tell. Basically, he can be my master and I have to do whatever he says. But there have been a lot of good moments and I have a lot of good memories with him, which is what makes it so hard to hate him for those bad memories. So I really like how this episode actually showed that struggle, where even though you might want to hate your dad for being an abusive asshole, you do not necessarily can, because there's also a lot of good memories and you just want for you two to get along. I really relate to that. So I think because of that, this is one of my favorite episodes of the season. And as I mentioned in my Fear the Walking Dead review, where I kind of like teased what I was going to be saying for this episode of World Beyond and the next two, the second half of the season has been so much better. Like, genuinely, from season 6 onwards, I've been paying attention much more and the episodes have been so much more enjoying. Like, I guess the first 5 episodes needed to like set up the main cast, like Hope, Iris, Elton, Silas, Felix, and Huck, and a bunch of other stuff about the CRM. But I don't know, the second like Percy showed up, who I actually really like as a character now, and I can't wait to see more of him and actually see him do some really cool stuff. The second he showed up, the show just got so much more interesting. Like in the first episode with him, where they go and take the truck, I got some Walking Dead season 3 vibes. Like, the place they went to reminded me of Woodbury. In general, just locations from that time frame of the main show. And then each episode had some really cool things to it as well. Like episode 7, I guess we saw more of Percy and his uncle, and I actually felt really bad about his uncle's death. And in this episode, we get actually a really cool and thoughtful backstory of Silas, and it was actually handled pretty well, like with nuance. I really like that. Although I did scream how stupid it was for him to just put his headphones on with the walker of his father just banging on the door. What if he breaks through? Like, yes, you lock the door, but what if he breaks through and attacks you? Are you that stupid? Plus, your mom is going to eventually come in and she's gonna get attacked, as it exactly happens by the end of the episode. So that is actually really cool. Like, I would say that's probably what I enjoyed about the episode the most. I didn't really care too much about the current time stuff, like with the fact that Silas was being set up as the person who killed Percy's uncle, when it was clearly not going to be him. Like, something that I feel like a lot of people haven't really said about the show is that people have focused a lot on the wrong things about the show. Like, when they hate this show, they hate the wrong stuff. Like, instead of hating how predictable the writing might be at times, like in this case with the fact that Silas wasn't the person who killed Tony, they focus on stupid stuff like the fact that it has similar vibes to the CW. It's a stupid thing to focus on and then say that it's bad when it's not bad. At the very least, it's competently made, you know. At the very least, you have to give it that credit for being competently made. So at the very least, this show is like a 5 or 6 out of 10, inherently. It's not that bad. Instead of focusing on things that are actually bad with it, like some pretentious dialogue or predictable writing, people focus on the wrong stuff. And yeah, it is predictable that Silas would not be the one. It's too obvious to send him as a person who killed Tony, even though they try to kind of make it believable with the fact that he's jealous of the close closeness between Percy and Iris. It still doesn't fit with his personality. He barely hurts anybody. Sure, he has some fits of rage, as we saw in that episode at the school, but he's never intentionally killed somebody. And even the way they try to set it up as well, with like the fact that he's drunk or whatever, it just doesn't feel right. Like, it didn't feel right. So yeah, he ends up leaving the group, which I guess is fine by me, although I just don't get why Felix and Huck would allow that. It doesn't make sense. Like, they're supposed to be the ones protecting these kids. What would his father or uncle or whatever kind of relative, the person that he was staying at, the campus colony was, what would his uncle think? Like, they still don't know that the campus was destroyed, so they should be considering the fact that their parents or relatives would be worried about them, like Elton's relatives, whoever he has left in that place, if he has anybody. And in Silas's case, I think it's his uncle or whatever. I think they mentioned him at some point, but the fact that they don't question it more inherently, like they do not actually consider this as a super important question that would make the question, how would you handle Silas possibly being murderous monster, is just bad writing in my opinion. The fact that they just so easily decide to leave him behind is just annoying. And what's even, I mean, it's not even more annoying, but it's also annoying, is the fact that nobody questions Elton leaving to follow him because he cares about him. Like, sure, you care about him, but is Felix so fucking focused on protecting Hope and Iris that he completely doesn't give a shit about Silas and Elton? I know that he was entrusted to protect Hope and Iris by their father, who Felix feels indebted to, but he should still feel the need to protect Silas and Elton as well, you know? I feel like those two characters have been very neglected in that regard. So yeah, at the end of the episode, Elton and Silas are, well, Silas leaves and Elton goes to follow him, and right before the end, Hope reveals to Elton the fact that she killed his mom, and he breaks down in actually a pretty emotional scene. I actually like that. And I believe it was at the end of this episode when it was revealed the stuff about Huck. I'm really not sure. A lot of these shows, episodes just blend into each other, which is a reason why I do not do recap reviews for this show like I do for Fear. Because it's just hard, because I not only struggle with remembering certain moments from the show's episodes, but I also struggle to remember which episode they were because they blur into each other so easily. And just I don't feel like there's enough stuff happening in the episodes for me to recap it like that, you know? But yeah, I think at the end of the episode it was revealed that Huck was actually a spy. Which, with the stuff that we see in the next episode, I feel like they shouldn't have done that. I feel like they shouldn't, because I feel like what they do in the next episode would have worked better and would have had much more weight if they didn't reveal to us that Huck was a spy for the CRM. But I'm gonna talk about more about it in my next video on World Beyond, which is going to do a review on episode 9 and 10 together, because they were released together, so might as well do them together, you know. So yeah, how I'm gonna rate this episode? I'm honestly actually going to give it an 8 out of 10. I really enjoyed this episode. Actually no, let's give it a 7.8 out of 10. I don't really think that it deserves an 8 out of 10. If it was solely an episode set in the past and dealing with that, I think it might have deserved an 8 out of 10. But it's just a lot of the current time stuff didn't feel as compelling as the backstory. So I don't really feel that it quite deserves an 8 out of 10, but 7.8, I guess it's good enough. Or I guess we could just do the usual the very least rating and the most rating. So at the very least, this episode is going to be a 6.8 out of 10, and at most it's going to be a 7.8 out of 10. So whichever you prefer from those two and any of the ones in between. But yeah, I really enjoyed this episode. It definitely was my favorite until the last two episodes, which I can't really wait to talk about because there was a lot, well, maybe not a lot, but there was quite a few things that I enjoyed about these two episodes. So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, leave a like, subscribe. Also check out the links in the description to my Twitter if you don't follow me there, and to my Wattpad where I post my stories, because in addition to doing all these videos on my channel, I'm also a writer. And if you end up enjoying my stories or you simply enjoy my videos, you can head over to Patreon where you can pledge support and help the channel going and help support me so I can keep writing the stories you enjoy. But still, if you don't want to do it, that's completely fine. You can still help me out in other ways, like liking this video, subscribing, and especially sharing this video with somebody who you think might enjoy it. And I think that's pretty much it for this video, so hopefully I'm gonna see you in the next one. Bye!